Chapter 95, Tantalum Bookstore. Whether Fan Xian wanted to or not, the people congratulating him still came in droves. Perhaps because they had found a rare opportunity to get closer to Servant Fan, or perhaps because they knew that the emperor had already made Fan Xian the co-lawyer of the Taishan Temple, and that his marriage to a certain person in the palace was imminent. The officials of the various ministries had given enough face to send their subordinates to come and congratulate him, and even the various princely mansions had sent gifts to him as well. Dongchuan rode sedan chair constantly, singing the sound of gifts. Gift boxes are almost piled up the entire council room. The crowd of onlookers on the street wondered, thinking that it was just a bookstore, but it had made such a commotion, and that this Duke Fan, who was both a scholar and a military man, was really not an ordinary person. The biggest benefit of the opening scene was that from now on, the tiny bookstore would have no trouble being harassed by those in the underground world, and there would be very few problems with the officials. Fan Xian calmly watched the scene, and bowed to the guests, knowing that most of them had come for his father's sake. The good thing is that the bookstore is too cramped. The guests are not any famous people, just a little chat, explain which family, and then leave. After these people left, there is still some suspicion, why the hall of the Fan family, but want a business, to know that merchants are always not very dignified a job. At this time, King Jing's son Li Hongqing finally came. The street recognizes his identity. People have saluted. He returned with a gentle face, without a trace of the arrogance of the royal relatives, face like a spring breeze, very elegant. Seeing him go to the store, some passers-by curiously said, "This tiny bookstore face can be really big." King Jing's house and the Fan family have always had good relations, don't you know? Fan Xian saw him coming and his heart moved slightly, such a character as gentle as the spring breeze, but willingly running around for the second prince. What kind of character should that second prince be? Smiling and shaking his head, he pushed all these things out of his mind, and welcomed him out of the store. He still wanted to have a more simple friendship with Li Hongqing. The two of them entered the quiet room at the back, and Li Hongqing sighed as he surveyed the decorations around him. It seems like quite a lot of silver was invested. I only took more than 1,700 taels. Fan Xian poured him a cup of tea and said, "A small business, it can't enter the eyes of the world prince." Li Hongqing took the tea and said with a wave of his head, "You Fan family members are the most capable of earning money. This is something that all the officials in the court know, except that Lord Sananbo is earning money and managing finances for the court, but you are earning it for yourself, and these two sides are not the same." Fan Xian smiled. Earned silver, always have to pay taxes to the court, even if they get some, cannot always put in the hands of rust. If you take out to use, and is to take care of other people's business is good, the court's tax will be more. So no matter where you do business, as long as you can earn money, this money is always in the hands of the court, and finally used to the people. Li Hongqing listened to some confusion, but also seems to understand some, hit the knuckles and sighed in admiration. Liao liao a few words, but it seems to say a great deal of reasoning. The court has always respected agriculture and suppression of business. I still wonder why you would choose this business, is not interested in career. It turns out that it is so. Fan Xian was greatly embarrassed, thinking that in his previous life, when he was not sick, he could only take the bottom few in political economy, just gossiping. Why did he become a reason? He quickly stopped and changed the topic. Come on, what's the career path or not? I've only made 2 crooked poems, and I'm going to be a deserter in next year's big competition. Li Hongqing, who had been disturbed by Fan Xian's style for a long time, finally used his fan again in front of him, and kept fanning his neck, and said with amusement, "If you write crooked poems, do you still let those people in the Imperial College live? Look, just now, how many students outside had to come to visit Fan the Poet, if not for your family's subordinates blocking the way? I'm afraid that this time is not yet quiet." Fan Xian said with a sad face, "Those students of the Imperial College, some of them are old enough to be my grandfather, but also came to call one student after another. It's really a bit unbearable." Li Hongqing laughed out loud, pointing his fan at him and said, "Look at your sad face, but your words are so narrow-minded. You're really a funny person." Fan Xian rolled his eyes, thinking to himself, "What's so interesting about you?" He asked. This time, I've taken the trouble to write the words for the king. When will you lead me to the king's residence to pay my respects to the old man? Li Hongqing was stunned, then remembered that in front of this teenager simply do not know his father once met with him. A smile. Also do not break this. Ready to look at the Fan family's teenagers' jokes in the future, when you want to go on it, where there is no need to say anything to me. King Jing's son Li Hongqing has always felt that the Fan Xian in front of him seems to be far more mature than his 16 or 17 years old age. Not to say that he is not surprised by the humiliation, but at least he is also very calm. He has always wanted to break the other party's calmness, and suddenly clapped his hands and said, "By the way, I also forgot to congratulate Fan Shi brother." Fan Xian was stunned, not knowing what to congratulate. Li Hongqing stood up. Congratulations to Shi brother for receiving the position of the conciliatory law officer of the Taishan Temple. The birds of joy are calling at this door, so I have to treat you to a few more drinks. Fan Xian smiled. So it's this, you should have been clear about it long ago. In the past, it was just a rumor in the palace, but it didn't come to fruition, so naturally it doesn't count. Not knowing what Li Hongqing thought of, his brow suddenly wrinkled. At this moment, he suddenly thought of a Sun thing. The second prince and himself always thought that the Fan family would not be on the side of the crown prince even if they were not biased in favor of helping themselves. But his side seemed to have overlooked a very important issue. After Fan Xian became married, his wife was the illegitimate daughter of the prime minister, and that there was no guarantee that he would not slowly throw himself to that side. So he suddenly lowered his voice and said, Si Li is going to be escorted back to the capital, so he might be able to find out who the person who colluded with Northern Qi really is. Fan Xian simply did not expect the other party to have thought of so many things in this turn of an eye, and was slightly stunned, then said with a bitter smile, I'm nothing more than a small ant. I just pray that these nobles in the court ignore me. Li Hongqing glanced at him, knowing that the other person's words are not quite true, but also did not point out, smiled and said, in short, and fight Guobaoku in that matter. What needs my hand? You do not be polite. That's natural. Fan Xian responded in vain, and then said another thing. I'm planning to open a tofu store in the south of the city. Are you interested in taking a stake? Li Hongqing was drinking tea, almost swallowed the tea bowl and woefully straightened his clothes, and said, Tofu store can earn a few money. The bookstore is still at least a book money. That's sour money. Fan Xian laughed and ignored him, thinking that when the time came to deliver the freshly squeezed soybean milk to the king's residence, you'll say it again. When he was in Tanyu, he ate a lot of tofu, but because of the different eating habits of the seaside, he rarely drank soybean milk, and after he came to the capital and drank it a few times, he always felt there was too much dregs, and he didn't know if it was a process problem or what, so he decided to improve it. To the twilight, after the end of the school, Fan Cija finally sneak along the back door came in. The last time, by Fan Xian lesson, he again counter lesson of the students of the same school, feel very good. So the school also do not feel that it is a piece of drudgery. But this day the bookstore opened, this from the site selection to the selection of paper, from the invitation to the shopkeeper to set the price of the book by his own hand to do things, cannot help him not nervous, so early over. As soon as he entered the bookstore, he first sighed long and short and didn't see the daytime scene, and then drilled headlong into the account room. Fan Xian sipped his tea and waited for him, and after a while, Fan Cija came out with a confused and innocent face. Fan Xian was startled and asked, what happened? Fan Cija mumbled for half a day before finally taking a breath and cursing, earned too much more than we thought. Huh? Is that so? Fan Xian originally thought that on the first day he opened the door, it would be good to have some business. Where did he think of this? He took the account book handed over by his brother and looked at it, looking at the number. His heart couldn't help but shake a little, not to mention that the fine edition of the Book of Stones had sold more than 80 sets, and even the scriptures, histories, and books that he had asked Wan Song Tang to print on his behalf had been bought by the readers. Watching the event, Fan Xian pinched his fingers and felt that doing business is really a very accomplished thing. Today's opening, those who have friendship with our family come to support more. Naturally, it won't be so good in the future. Fan Xian looked at Fan Cija, whose eyes had turned into copper coins, and carefully reminded him. Fan Xizhi swallowed a mouthful of saliva and cast an envious look at his elder brother. Big brother, I know. It's just that you get to sit in the bookstore every day, while I only get to hide. I really envy you. Fan Xian lost his smile and said, Do you like being a merchant that much? My father's title is still waiting for you to inherit. Study hard. In the future, the whole court's money may be under your control. That will have to be the secretary of the Ministry of Households. Fan Xizhi said with a gloomy face, Father is a scout origin, right now is still only a minister. Obviously that the old Shangshu are lying in bed for several years. The court did not let my father top up. I can at best donate a merit. This road is only afraid that it is not possible. Fan Xian looked at his brother with some surprise. Suddenly this little guy, although there are a lot of naughty and unruly places, but look at themselves to see things, is unexpectedly shrewd. After thinking about it, said, Love to do business on do go. Father, there I will go to say. Fan Xizhi was overjoyed, but suddenly said with a worried frown, But what about mother? Fan Xian's heart lurched, remembering Lu, who he hadn't considered for a long time. The Fan Mansion in Kyoto seemed to be in a happy place, but who knew how long this seemingly wonderful situation could continue?